Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The government is understood to be taking extra measures to support the upcoming Legislative Council election. Authorities are considering setting up voting sites at some police stations. A subsidy will also be provided to centers for the elderly and the disabled to facilitate transportation and staffing support on polling day. Memo-Sung-ai reports.
The Legislative Council polling day is on December 7th. About 600 ordinary polling stations will be set up for geographical and functional constituency voters to cast their ballot on the day. In a bid to help civil servants to vote, sources say authorities plan to add polling sites in certain police stations and public hospitals. Another idea is to have ballot boxes in elderly homes that are located in rural areas. Tam Yu-jung, Vice President of the Chinese Association of Hong Kong and Macau Studies, said it is difficult to predict the voting rate of this election. But he said measures to make it more convenient to vote will promote the participation of voters. On social media, the Labour and Welfare Bureau said a subsidy of $20,000 will continue to be offered to district elderly community centres to help arrange vehicles and workers to assist senior citizens and their carers to vote. District support centres for persons with disabilities will also receive the same level of subsidy and arrangement. Memo-Sung-ai, TVB News.
The Examinations and Assessment Authority released their comments on candidates' performances at this year's Diploma of Secondary Education, or DSE, exam. The report notes that some students used Hong Kong-style English, or Konglish, in the speaking exam and showed weak analytical skills in their native Chinese language. With that, authorities urge students to consume less fragmented information online and engage more in deep reading and critical reflection. For the English language paper, weaker candidates this year were said to have difficulties expressing themselves due to a lack of vocabulary and poor grammar. The most common grammatical errors among exam takers include part-of-speech issues, like everyone can success instead of the correct everyone can succeed. Other Konglish expressions flagged by the HKEAA, grandfather taught father taught me, or people is very easy to call Uber. Some weaker candidates in the speaking exam would say, I agree with you, or your idea is good regardless of their stance. Spelling mistakes could be seen in reading, writing, and listening papers. They include spelling fill as feel, or misinterpreting vegetarian as vegetables. In the Chinese language paper, performance varied widely. In the practical writing paper, exam takers were asked to prepare a speech for a school event explaining the significance of holding a pet-related event. Some answers went off track. Some candidates wrote that adopting pets helps maintain biodiversity, an answer that the exam authority describes as illogical, noting pets are not wild animals. Authorities in India are investigating a deadly car blast in the capital on Monday night that killed at least 8 people and injured at least 19 others. The explosion occurred close to the historic Red Fort in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was on a scheduled visit to Bhutan on Tuesday, said investigators would get to the bottom of this conspiracy. Nasir Karim with more.
A morning calm descends over the area near the historic Red Fort in New Delhi, but the horrors of the night before won't easily be forgotten. Outside a mortuary, Bobby Rampandi said his relative who worked nearby died in the blast. We just now received the body, he said. According to police, on Monday night at around 7 p.m. local time, a slow-moving car stopped at a traffic light and suddenly exploded. The blast triggered a fire that engulfed several nearby cars and rickshaws. Witnesses describe hearing a loud explosion and then running towards the site of the blast to a scene of bloody carnage, with mangled vehicles and body parts strewn all over the street. The cause of the explosion remained unclear, with reports saying the police have registered the case under anti-terrorism laws.
What we can see here are a few damaged vehicles, broken shards of glass, and a few debris of some vehicles, a little blood, as well as a lot of ambulances stationed over here.
Indian Home Minister Amit Shah visited the site of the blast, and Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta visited the hospital where the injured are being treated. Prime Minister Narendra Modi offered his condolences to those who lost their loved ones on X. Modi vowed to solve the case, saying the conspirators won't be spared and those responsible will be brought to justice. A former imperial palace, the 17th century Red Fort, is a major tourist attraction in the Old Delhi section of the city. Located 6 kilometers from the parliament, it is where Indian Prime Minister delivered their annual Independence Day speeches on August 15th. Meanwhile, some people are still seeking news of relatives missing in the wake of the blast. Muhammad Idris is at a hospital searching for Muhammad Jumman, an electric rickshaw driver, showing the GPS coordinates of his vehicle. They told me to go here, go there, go to gate 4, go to the backside. We still are not able to find him anywhere. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
World leaders have gathered in Brazil for the 30th UN Climate Conference, or COP30. A litany of recent weather disasters rang long at the conference's opening Monday, with Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica, the recent typhoons in the Philippines, and a deadly tornado in Brazil at the forefront. This as the United States was a no-show at the climate conference, with activists using an empty chair to drive home America's absence as the world's richest nation and the second biggest carbon polluter. Tracy Furness has more.
COP30 opened in Belém, a weathered city on the edge of the Brazilian Amazon, with leaders and representatives from 195 nations attending for talks on climate change. Only the US, San Marino, Afghanistan and Myanmar were no-shows. Talks focused on the devastation wrought on some of the world's poorest places and to show the need to work collectively to fight global warming.
Global heating is already dealing some devastating blows in every country. Just look at the super typhoons blasting the Philippines and Vietnam, the brutality of Hurricane Melissa, crushing lives and businesses. The costs of delay are skyrocketing for every nation. And that's why we're here. We must accelerate in the Amazon.
But it was not all doom and gloom, as statistics show planet heating emissions, such as greenhouse gases, are on a downward spiral.
We're now bending the curve of planet heating emissions downwards for the very first time.
He added the new NDC, or Nationally Determined Contribution Plan, submitted by each country under the Paris Agreement outlining their goals, states they will reduce emissions by 12% in 2035. There were demonstrations outside the COP30 venue calling for the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to leave lobbyists out of the agreement. Activists shared stories about how industrial agriculture affected their indigenous lands and homes. Meanwhile, indigenous people from across the world came to the opening of their pavilion. Despite delay due to a power outage, the group sang songs, performed ceremonies and spoke about the importance of indigenous peoples in spaces like COP. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The BBC's outgoing Director General Tim Davie addressed staff as he makes way following accusations the British broadcaster is biased against U.S. President Donald Trump. The corporation faces litigation from Trump. David Garrett with more.
The outgoing boss arriving for one of his last times at BBC Broadcasting House, Director General Tim Davie resigned along with the head of news as Donald Trump threatens to sue. A BBC memo described parts of their own coverage of Trump's successful election campaign as biased and misleading.
Proud of our journalists in this building. They're doing work I think that's incredibly important. I want to thank every one of them. They're doing a wonderful job. Also, everyone across the BBC doing their thing for the UK, and personally, I'm here to lead and support them. The BBC's going to be thriving, and I support every one of the team. I'm very proud of them.
An edit of this Trump speech made after his loss to Joe Biden has caused an existential crisis for the BBC. The Panorama documentary entitled Trump, A Second Chance aired last year in the lead-up to Trump's White House return. It substantially altered a section, changing Trump's intention and meaning. Here is what he actually said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
The BBC programme cut from walk down to the Capitol to a much later moment when Trump urged his supporters to fight like hell. The edit suggests Trump was inciting violence ahead of the Capitol riots that followed. This misleading BBC edit has led to 2 major resignations, accusations of systemic anti-Trump bias and an apology from the corporation after reviewing its coverage.
by and large, we were told we'd done a very good job. There were some areas where we had not done such a good job, and one of them was the panorama. Now, in hindsight, we could have acted earlier, but we didn't. So today, I have announced that we have looked into it and we have apologized.
The president's lawyers could claim $1 billion in damages. Some say Trump is trying to leverage favourable coverage. Julie Pezzetti of the International Centre for Journalists is also critical of the BBC's outgoing Davey and new CEO Deborah Turness for not being stronger and reacting quicker.
I think it is part of a pattern of capitulation, which we certainly saw with CBS in the US, with reference to Trump's threats to sue CBS or actions to litigate. And perhaps there was concern on the BBC's part about similar potential litigation.
Inside, the search for replacements for BBC's top jobs begins. David Garrett, TVB News.
Taiwan has evacuated more than 3,000 people and closed schools ahead of the arrival of tropical storm Fung-wong, which killed at least 18 people and displaced more than 1.5 million in the Philippines. Fung-wong brought winds of up to 230 kilometers to the Philippines. The storm is losing intensity, with the gusts expected to hit Taiwan likely to be about half of that level. Nevertheless, all precautions are in place, with boats moored and vulnerable people helped away from eastern areas and warnings in place across most of the island. The Philippines is recovering after Fung-wong made landfall early on Monday. 18 were killed, including 3 children. Buildings and infrastructure destroyed in many areas. Flooding and mudslides have been extensive. The devastation was not as bad as predicted or as severe as last week's impact of Typhoon Kalmaki. U.S., the Senate passed legislation to reopen the government, bringing the longest shutdown in history closer to an end, as a small group of Democrats ratified a deal with Republicans despite searing criticism from within their party. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump demanded air traffic controllers return to work as travelers endured another day of flight cancellations, which the administration ordered to manage staff shortages during the government shutdown. Tracy Furness reports.
On this vote, the yeas are 60 and the nays are 40. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn have voted in the affirmative. The motion is agreed to.
The Senate passing legislation to reopen government, bringing the 6-week shutdown closer to an end after a small group of Democrats struck a deal with Republicans.
This has been a very long road, quite literally the longest shutdown in history. I am very, very happy to be able to say that we are coming to the end. And before we close today, I want to take the time to say thank you to my staff who have worked around the clock tirelessly now for the past 6 weeks.
The agreement still needs to be approved by the House and includes provisions that would reverse the mass firings of federal workers and guarantees they are to be paid once the shutdown is over. Asked whether air travel can be expected to go back to normal if the government were to reopen, President Donald Trump said it will soon be better than normal because of improvements he claims the administration is making to air traffic control systems.
We are now in the process, we're in final bids of getting the finest system anywhere in the world. I've analyzed it. Sean Duffy has been working really hard on it, doing a fantastic job, by the way. And over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be handing out the finest air traffic control system anywhere in the world. All the towers will be equipped.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Former Director of Government Logistics Carlson Chan, who was earlier involved in a water supply contract scandal, has been removed from the attendance list on Saturday's honors and awards presentation ceremony at Government House. This as Chan was awarded the Silver Bohemia Star earlier this year. The government noted that the water supply contract scandal is still under investigation, adding that Chan will not be included in the event until the results of the investigation come out. Authorities said they have already informed the former logistics chief of the decision. The Immigration Department has arrested 21 people, including domestic helpers and employers, in an anti-illegal worker operation. 2 were arrested on suspicion of working illegally as trainers at a mountain bike training site. Memo Sanga reports.
In the past 8 days, the Immigration Department searched 47 locations across the city, including restaurants and shops. During the operation, authorities caught 2 35-year-old Filipino men at the Sensho mountain bike training site. The 2 men were domestic helpers, but they were recruited to help with the maintenance and cleaning of the mountain bikes. They also acted as coaches, despite not holding a license or relevant qualifications. Some of the mountain bike training site's customers were foreign domestic helpers. Authorities said the pair's employer was also the owner of the site. Apart from their basic domestic helper contract salary, the 2 received an extra $500 to $2,000 from working on the site. Another arrest took place in a barbecue place in Taipo, where 2 female Filipino domestic helpers worked in a kitchen. The site's operator was one of the helpers' employer. The other arrested domestic helpers were suspected of working as dishwashers in restaurants. They were paid $100 to $400 per day. Memos 9, TVB News.
Police arrested 2 siblings on suspicion of assault. The incident happened in Sao Mau Ping on Monday evening. Sources say an 18-year-old woman and her 15-year-old brother got into a fight over the use of the toilet. The brother hit the sister's head with a fan and pushed her against a wall. And the sister stabbed the brother's neck and head with a knife. The duo's elder sister reported the incident to the police. The siblings were sent to the hospital for treatment. Christmas is a little more than a month away. Shopping malls across Hong Kong are already lighting up. Festive lights deck the hall, or rather this mall in Tsim Sha Tsui. Holiday cheer in other shopping centers across town too, which rolled out themed decorations to woo the photo-snapping shoppers. Festive decor companies also feeling the glow. A light installation firm says inquiries have jumped 20 to 30% this year thanks to the burgeoning popularity of immersive light projections. Some shopping malls say they will continue to ramp up promotions, especially targeting families and pet owners. And here's a reminder that due to our showing of the national games, tomorrow's main news will again start at 9 p.m. See you then.